Have you ever seen a picture that felt like a punch to the gut? For Mina Vance, it was a photo of her husband of 10 years, laughing on a sun-drenched balcony in Italy, his arm wrapped around a younger woman, a woman who wasn't her. He posted it for the whole world to see, a public declaration that their life together was a lie. While he was building a new life on the ruins of their marriage, he probably thought she was at home shattered. He was right. But he forgot one thing about a woman with nothing left to lose: she is free. And he never imagined she would return to the very same place, not as a ghost of the past, but as the star of a future he could only dream of, on the arm of a man who could buy his entire world with pocket change. This is the story of how a single Instagram post ignited a fire of reinvention and revenge. The life Mina and Liam Sterling had built was a masterclass in curated perfection. Their sprawling Upper East Side brownstone was featured in Architectural Digest. Their Christmas parties were the stuff of hushed legend among Manhattan's elite, a seamless blend of old money and new tech. Liam, with his sharp suits and sharper smile, was the charismatic CEO of Innovate, a tech logistics firm that had disrupted the industry. And Mina, elegant and intelligent, was the perfect partner, the unseen architect of their social ascent, the woman who had poured her inheritance and her MBA from Wharton into the company's fledgling years. To the outside world, they were a power couple. To Mina, they were a team. She remembered the early days, hunched over a laptop in their tiny first apartment, fueled by cheap coffee and a shared dream. She was the one who drafted the initial business plan, the one who secured the first round of angel investment through a family friend, the one who smoothed over Liam's more abrasive tendencies with clients and investors. He was the face. She was the foundation. The first crack in that foundation was almost imperceptible. It wasn't a fight or a grand betrayal, but a shift in the digital ether. Liam, who had once scoffed at social media as a vapid time suck, suddenly became an avid user. His Instagram, once a ghost town, was now a glossy highlight reel of boardrooms, charity galas, and solo trips to clear his head. "It's for the brand L," he'd said, waving a dismissive hand when she questioned it. "We need a public face. People invest in the person, not just the product." Mina, ever the strategist, conceded the point. But a quiet unease settled in her stomach. The man in the picture's filtered posed, surrounded by a rotating cast of bright young employees, felt like a stranger. The comments sections were filled with fawning praise, especially from one particular account, at Ella the Vibe. Her comments were always just a little too familiar, a little too flirtatious. "Power moves only," she'd write under a picture of Liam ringing the NASDAQ bell. "The view is almost as good as the company," she'd comment on a photo of a cityscape from a hotel room Mina didn't recognize. When Mina brought it up, Liam laughed it off. "Ella, she's a junior marketing associate. A kid. Eager, that's all. Don't be paranoid." He kissed her forehead, a gesture that once felt loving, but now felt like a dismissal. The paranoia festered, a quiet poison. He started working later. Business trips became more frequent and opaque. The easy intimacy they once shared was replaced by a polite distance, punctuated by expensive gifts that felt more like hush money than tokens of affection. A Birkin bag appeared on their anniversary, a Patek Philippe watch for her birthday. They were beautiful, expensive, and empty. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. It was a gray, drizzly New York morning. Liam was supposedly in San Francisco for a tech conference. Mina was scrolling through her phone, a mindless habit, when a post from Ella stopped her breath. It wasn't a comment. It was a picture. The sun was impossibly bright. glinting off a turquoise sea. A cluster of pastel-colored houses clung to a cliffside, the Amalfi Coast. And there, on a bougainvillea-draped balcony, was Liam. He wasn't in a suit. He was in a linen shirt, his arm slung casually, possessively around Ella's bare shoulders. She was in a bikini, beaming her head tilted against his chest. They were clinking glasses of Aperol Spritz, a toast to a life Mina was not a part of. The caption was a single word, finally. The air left Mina's lungs. Every excuse, every plausible deniability, every gaslit fear she had suppressed for months, coalesced into a single, brutal truth. He wasn't in San Francisco. He was in Italy, in a place they had always dreamed of going with a woman half her age. She looked at the details. The hotel balcony was unmistakable. It was the Hotel Santa Caterina, the very place she had bookmarked years ago under a file named Dream 10th Anniversary. Their 10th anniversary was in 2 months. The world went silent. The ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall sounded like a bomb. She clicked on Liam's profile. Nothing. He hadn't posted. He was too careful for that. But Ella, in her youthful arrogance, had tagged him. He hadn't untagged himself yet. It was a mistake, a slip-up in their carefully constructed deceit. Mina felt a cold, terrifying calm wash over her. The hurt was so profound, it was almost abstract. She didn't cry. She acted. Her fingers, steady and precise, took a screenshot, then another and another. She documented everything: the post, the comments from their mutual friends, asking OMG, who is she? Ella's profile full of pictures of company events Mina hadn't been invited to. When Liam called that evening, his voice full of feigned exhaustion from his conference, she played along. "How was it, darling?" she asked, her voice smooth as glass. "Brutal. Back-to-back meetings. You know how it is. I miss you." "I miss you too," she said. The lie tasted like ash. Fly safe. The moment she hung up, she called the one person she knew could handle the fallout. Not a friend, not a family member, but the most feared divorce attorney in the country, Laura Wasser. Her name was a weapon whispered in the hushed tones of shattered Hollywood and Wall Street marriages. Getting Wasser was a declaration of war. "Laura, it's Mina Sterling," she said when the famous lawyer came on the line. "We met at the Met Gala last year. You told me if I ever needed you, I should call. I'm calling." There was a pause. "I remember you." Wasser's voice was calm, clinical. "What's happened?" "My husband is having an affair." Mina said the words, feeling foreign and clinical. "But that's the least of it. I'm a founding partner in his company, but my name isn't on the corporate documents in the way it should be. My inheritance was the seed money. I need to protect myself. I want to be proactive." "Good," said Wasser. "Don't say a word to him. Let him enjoy his vacation. The longer he's in the dark, the better for us. We're going to dismantle his world so quietly he won't hear it coming." For the next week, Mina lived a double life. She was the grieving wife and the vengeful strategist. While Liam was sending her texts about missing her, she and Wasser's team of forensic accountants were digging into every corner of Innovate's finances. They found it all: the secret credit card for Ella's shopping sprees on Fifth Avenue, the rent for a luxury condo in Soho under a shell corporation, the diverted funds listed as executive expenses that paid for their Italian getaway. When Liam's car finally pulled up to the brownstone, he was tan and smiling, holding a box of expensive Italian chocolates. "I'm home," he said, stepping in for a kiss. Mina stepped back. She didn't say a word. She simply slid a manila envelope across the polished mahogany table in the foyer. His smile faltered. He opened it. Inside was a single high-resolution printout of the Instagram photo. Ella. The balcony. The toast. His face went from tan to ghost white in a second. He opened his mouth, a protest already forming. "Don't, Mina," said her voice, devoid of all emotion. "Don't you dare lie to me in this house." He looked at her, truly looked at her for the first time in months, and saw not the loving wife he'd left behind, but a stranger, a woman with eyes of ice. "Mina, I can explain." "No," she interrupted. "You can't. But your lawyers can. They'll be hearing from Laura Wasser in the morning." The name hung in the air between them, more powerful than any curse. Liam's face crumpled. The charismatic CEO vanished, replaced by a panicked boy caught with his hand in the cookie jar. In that moment, Mina knew the gilded cage she had lived in had been blown wide open. The pain was immense, but for the first time in a very long time, she felt the exhilarating, terrifying thrill of being free. The divorce was not a war, it was an annexation. Laura Wasser and her team operated with the surgical precision of a military strike force. Liam, accustomed to being the smartest person in any room, was hopelessly outmaneuvered. His attempts at charm and intimidation bounced harmlessly off Wasser's ironclad professionalism. The evidence Mina had gathered was irrefutable, painting a picture not of a simple affair, but of a calculated long-term fraud against his marital and business partner. Faced with the threat of his financial misdeeds being made public, a scandal that would have spooked investors and cratered Innovate's stock price, Liam capitulated. The settlement was swift and brutal. Mina walked away with a clean break, a significant portion of the company's stock that legally should have been hers from the start, and the Upper East Side brownstone, the monument to their shared ambition that now felt like a mausoleum. The victory felt hollow. The day the papers were signed, Mina walked through the silent, cavernous rooms of the house. The Architectural Digest spread was still on the coffee table, a cruel reminder of a life that had been a lie. She had won the battle, but she was left surveying an empire of ashes. Her life, as she knew it, had been incinerated. In the vacuum that followed, social media became her tormentor. Liam and Ella, free from the need for secrecy, launched a full-scale assault of curated bliss. Their engagement was announced via a People magazine exclusive. The headline reading, "Tech mogul Liam Sterling finds true love." The article painted Ella as his muse, the vibrant force who inspired him to live authentically. Mina wasn't mentioned by name, merely alluded to as the amicable end of a previous chapter. Amicable. The word was a hot poker to her soul. Every post was a carefully aimed dart. A picture of Ella's offensively large diamond ring with the caption, "Future Mrs. Sterling, my whole heart." A video of them laughing as they moved into a new hyper-modern glass penthouse in Tribeca, a clear rejection of the classic elegance of the brownstone Mina had so lovingly curated. They were at all the right parties, sitting front row at Fashion Week, vacationing in St. Bart's. They were building a new narrative, one in which Mina was a forgotten prequel. Her friends, the ones from their shared life, fell away. Some offered pitying looks and platitudes, their discomfort palpable. Others, the more opportunistic ones, simply gravitated toward the new center of power, their invitations to Mina drying up as they clamored for a spot at Liam and Ella's table. She was a social pariah, the ghost of Sterling past. Her days bled into one another in a haze of grief and inertia. She'd wake up late, the silence of the house pressing down on her. She'd scroll through Instagram, a masochistic ritual of self-flagellation. She'd see Ella wearing a dress Mina had picked out for a gala, or Liam toasting with the very investors Mina had won over. Each image was a confirmation of her deepest fear that she was replaceable, that her decade of work, love, and sacrifice had amounted to nothing. She had been the scaffolding, and now that the building was complete, she had been dismantled and discarded. The nights were the worst. Sleep offered no escape, her dreams haunted by the ghost of their shared laughter, the phantom feeling of his hand in hers. She'd wake up with her heart pounding, reaching for the empty space beside her in the king-sized bed. The pain was a physical thing, a crushing weight on her chest. One rainy Thursday, huddled under a cashmere throw in her cavernous living room, she hit rock bottom. Ella had posted a Throwback Thursday photo. It was a picture of Liam from 5 years prior at the company's first major product launch. Mina had taken that photo. She remembered the feeling of pride that had swelled in her chest as he spoke, the way his eyes had searched for hers in the crowd. In Ella's post, the context was rewritten. The caption read, "Even back then, you were a superstar. So proud to be on this journey with you. #innovate, #couple goals, on this journey with you." The audacity of it, the sheer historical revisionism, broke something in Mina. The grief that had paralyzed her for months finally curdled into a white-hot rage. She wasn't just sad anymore. She was furious. Furious at Liam for his betrayal, furious at Ella for her smug theft of a life she hadn't earned, but most of all, furious at herself for letting them reduce her to this, a spectator of her own erased history. She hurled her phone across the room, watching it clatter against the marble fireplace. The screen spiderwebbed, but didn't break a fitting metaphor for her own state. Damaged, but not destroyed. She stood up, her body trembling with a new, unfamiliar energy. She walked to the grand floor-to-ceiling mirror in the foyer. The woman staring back was a stranger. Her eyes were hollow, her face pale. She saw the ghost they wanted her to be. "No," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "No more." It wasn't a shout, but it was the most powerful word she had ever spoken. It was a promise, a vow. They would not get to write her ending. They had taken her past, but she would be damned if she let them take her future too. She walked to the kitchen and poured the dregs of an expensive bottle of wine down the sink. She went to her office, a room she hadn't entered since the divorce, and looked at the Wharton diploma on the wall. She had been a strategist, a builder, a kingmaker. That woman was still in there, buried under layers of heartbreak and humiliation. She picked up her shattered phone and made a call not to a friend, but to a former business school classmate who now ran a high-end art consultancy. "Celeste, it's Mina. Mina Sterling," she said, then corrected herself, the new words feeling both strange and powerful. "Actually, it's Mina Vance. That was my name before. I think I'd like to use it again." There was a surprised pause. "Mina, my God, I've read the papers. Are you okay?" "I'm about to be," Mina said, a spark of her old fire returning. "I have some capital I'd like to put to work, and I have an idea. I'm tired of watching other people build things. It's time to build something for myself." She didn't know exactly what the future held. The path forward was a fog, but for the first time in a year, she was walking toward it, leaving the empire of ashes behind her. The fire had burned her life to the ground, but now standing in the ruins, she could feel the heat of the phoenix stirring within. Mina Vance. The name felt like coming home. Sterling was a brand, a cage. Vance was her identity. Armed with this small but significant reclamation of self, she launched what she privately called the Phoenix Protocol. It wasn't a plan for revenge, not yet. It was a strategy for resurrection. She sold the brownstone. The sale was record-breaking, making headlines in the real estate sections and causing a fresh wave of chatter. Liam, she knew, would see it as a sign of financial distress. Let him. She used the proceeds to purchase a chic, light-filled gallery space in Chelsea, the heart of New York's art world. The space was raw, industrial, and full of potential, everything her old life was not. Her idea, born from her passion for art and her sharp business acumen, was simple but disruptive. Vance Modern would not be a traditional gallery. It would be a hybrid, part gallery, part consultancy, part art investment fund. She would use her eye for talent to discover emerging artists, her Wharton training to build their brands, and her capital to invest directly in their careers, taking a stake in their future success rather than just a commission on a sale. She was creating a new ecosystem, one built on partnership, not just transaction. The first few months were a grueling, exhilarating blur. She poured every ounce of her energy into the project. She traded her designer gowns for jeans and work boots, her days filled with studio visits in dusty Brooklyn lofts, negotiations with contractors, and marathon sessions building financial models. The grief hadn't vanished, but it was no longer the center of her universe. It was now fuel, a fire in her belly that pushed her to work harder, to be smarter, to build something so undeniable it would eclipse the shadow of her past. Her former social circle watched from a distance, skeptical. Poor Mina, having a little hobby to keep her busy, was the general consensus, whispered over brunch at Balthazar. They didn't see the fierce intelligence in her eyes or the relentless determination that propelled her forward. They saw a fallen woman playing shop. The turning point came during a trip to Art Basel in Miami. She was there to scout talent, moving through the chaotic energy of the convention center with a focused intensity. She was studying a striking, large-scale abstract painting by an unknown Brazilian artist when a low, resonant voice spoke beside her. He's using a fascinating impasto technique, almost sculptural. But the color palette is what truly elevates it. It's desperate but hopeful. Mina turned. The man standing next to her was tall, with salt and pepper hair and eyes of a startling, intelligent blue. He was dressed in a simple, impeccably tailored linen suit that spoke of effortless wealth. He wasn't looking at her, but at the canvas, his focus absolute. There was a palpable aura of calm, centered power around him. "I agree," Mina said, her voice finding its professional footing. Most artists would have used a warmer tone to counterbalance the texture, but his choice of cool blues and stark whites creates a tension. It's what makes the piece so compelling. He finally turned his gaze from the painting to her, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. "You're not just looking, you're seeing," he said, a small, appreciative smile touching his lips. He extended a hand. Julian Croft. The name registered instantly. Julian Croft wasn't just wealthy, he was a titan, a self-made billionaire who had revolutionized the renewable energy sector. He was famously private, almost reclusive, known more for his brilliant mind and quiet philanthropy than for any flashy displays of wealth. He was the antithesis of Liam Sterling. "Mina Vance," she replied, shaking his hand. His grip was firm, his focus entirely on her. It was a strange feeling to be seen, truly seen, by a man of his stature. "Vance," he mused, his blue eyes searching her face. "You're the one opening the new space in Chelsea, the hybrid model, I read about it in the Financial Times. It's a bold play. Mina was stunned. You've heard of my gallery. I make it my business to know about bold plays, he said. Most people in your world are content to be custodians of the past. You're trying to build the future. It's intriguing. They talked for over an hour, weaving through the crowded aisles of the art fair. Their conversation flowed effortlessly from art to economics, from the psychology of collecting to the future of sustainable technology. He listened more than he spoke, asking sharp, insightful questions that pushed her to articulate her vision with more clarity than ever before. He wasn't flirting. He was dissecting her business plan, testing its strength, and in the process, validating it. He wasn't interested in her past, in the gossip columns or the scandalous divorce. He was interested in her mind. For Mina, who had spent the last year feeling like a footnote in another person's story, it was like drinking water after years in a desert. As the fair was winding down, he paused before a sculpture. I have a proposition for you, Ms. Vance, he said, turning to her. My corporate headquarters in London is undergoing a redesign. The lobby is, to put it mildly, soulless. I need a collection that reflects the company's ethos, innovation, disruption, and forward thinking. I want you to curate it. Mina's heart hammered against her ribs. This wasn't just a sale. It was a commission of a magnitude that would instantly put Vance Modern on the map. It was the kind of career-defining project she had only dreamed of. But I haven't even officially opened yet, she said, her voice betraying a hint of her shock. I'm not investing in your gallery, Julian said, his gaze steady and unwavering. I'm investing in your eye. I'm investing in you. Do we have a deal? He didn't offer to have his people call her people. He took out his phone and handed it to her. Put your number in. Let's have dinner tonight to discuss the brief. That evening over dinner, at a quiet, hidden restaurant in South Beach, Mina, she felt a tectonic shift in her life. It wasn't just about the business opportunity, as monumental as it was. It was the feeling of being recognized for her intellect and her vision by someone she respected immensely. Julian Croft didn't see a broken woman. He saw a peer. As she flew back to New York the next day, flying commercial, a fact that felt grounding, she knew the Phoenix Protocol had moved into a new phase. She had laid the foundation, and now the most powerful man she had ever met had just handed her the architect's plans for a skyscraper. The ashes were far below her now, and for the first time, she could see the sky. The Julian Croft Commission was the catalyst. News of it spread through the insular art and finance worlds like a shockwave, lending Vance Modern an instant, unassailable credibility. The whispers about poor Mina died down, replaced by murmurs of reluctant admiration. The gallery's official opening was a staggering success. The art world's most influential critics, collectors, and artists filled the space, drawn in by the gravitational pull of the Croft name. But it was Mina's vision that made them stay. The inaugural exhibition, Emergence, showcased the very artists she had discovered in their humble studios. The work was bold, raw, and utterly fresh. Juxtaposed with the gallery's sophisticated minimalist design, it felt like the future. By the end of the night, every single piece had sold. Mina was no longer playing shop. She was running an empire. Her partnership with Julian was professional, yet it deepened into a genuine and profound friendship. He was a demanding client, his standards exacting, but he was also an incredible mentor. They spoke almost daily, their conversations, starting with the London project, but invariably branching out into broader discussions of strategy, market trends, and life. He pushed her, challenged her, and celebrated her victories with a quiet, sincere pride that felt more meaningful than any public accolade. He taught her the difference between wealth and power. Liam had used wealth to acquire things, cars, watches, a younger woman. It was about possession. Julian wielded his power to create, to build, to effect change. He was playing a different game entirely, and he was teaching her the rules. With his guidance, Mina's confidence soared. She was no longer the ghost of the Upper East Side. She was Mina Vance, the founder of Vance Modern, a woman whose opinion shaped markets. She moved with a new assurance, her style evolving from the safe classic pieces of her old life to a bold architectural elegance. She was a woman remade in her own image. The romance between them was a slow, beautiful burn, so gradual that Mina almost didn't see it happening. It wasn't built on grand, dramatic gestures, but on small moments of true connection. It was in the way he'd send her an obscure book on Bauhaus design because something in it reminded him of her, or the way she'd make him laugh with a dry, witty observation that no one else would dare to say. One evening, they were working late in her office, finalizing the layout for the London lobby. A storm was raging outside, a classic New York thunderstorm. They had ordered in sushi and were spread out over a large table covered in blueprints and art catalogues. "You've done remarkable work, Mina," Julian said, looking at her across the table. "The blueprints were forgotten. You've exceeded every expectation." "I had a good mentor," she replied, a soft smile on her lips. "I may have opened a door," he conceded, "but you were the one who had the courage to walk through it and build a palace on the other side." He paused, his blue eyes holding hers. "I find myself thinking about you often, even when we're not discussing art." The air in the room shifted. The professional boundary that had always existed between them became shimmering and translucent. "I feel the same," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. He stood up and walked around the table, stopping before her. He didn't reach for her immediately. Instead, he gently brushed a stray strand of hair from her face, his touch sending a jolt of electricity through her. It was a gesture of such tenderness, such profound respect, that it brought tears to her eyes. "May I?" he asked, his voice low. She simply nodded, unable to speak. His kiss was not the hungry, possessive kiss of her past. It was gentle questioning, and then, as she responded, it deepened into a passionate expression of all the unspoken admiration and affection that had grown between them over the months. It was a kiss between equals, a kiss that sealed not a transaction, but a partnership of the heart and mind. Their relationship, once it crossed that line, became a source of quiet joy for both of them. They kept it intensely private, a sanctuary from the prying eyes of the world. They found their happiness not at galas or red carpets, but in stolen weekends at his secluded estate in the Hudson Valley, in cooking dinner together in her new downtown apartment, in the simple, profound pleasure of being with someone who saw and cherished the real you. Mina was finally truly happy. The pain of her past had not been erased, but it had been integrated. It was part of her story, the crucible that had forged the woman she was now. She rarely thought of Liam and Ella anymore. Their world, with its desperate need for validation and its performative happiness, seemed small and distant from the authentic life she was building with Julian. Then, one crisp autumn afternoon, the past came roaring back. She was at her desk when her phone buzzed with a notification. It was a tag on an Instagram post from one of her old society friends. The picture was of Liam and Ella clinking champagne glasses on a private jet. They both wore matching cream-colored outfits, their tans glowing, their smiles aggressively perfect. But it wasn't the picture that made Mina's blood run cold. It was the caption, written by Ella. "Off to our special place to finalize the wedding plans. 10 years in the making, a decade of dreams. Can't wait to be your wife, at Liam Sterling." Amalfi Coast, Hotel Santa Caterina. True love, 10 years in the making. The lie was so blatant, so audacious, it was breathtaking. She was co-opting Mina's history, her dreams, and packaging them as her own. And the destination, the Hotel Santa Caterina. The one place Mina had held sacred, the dream destination for her and Liam's 10th anniversary. It was a deliberate, calculated act of cruelty, a final twist of the knife to prove that they had won, that they had taken everything, even her memories. A year ago, this post would have shattered her. She would have retreated into the darkness, the pain too much to bear. But as she stared at the screen, she felt something different. The initial shock gave way to a cold, hard clarity. It was the feeling of a queen seeing her territory invaded. Julian, walking into her office, saw the look on her face. "What is it?" he asked, his voice laced with concern. She didn't say a word. She simply turned the phone around for him to see. He read the post, his expression hardening. He looked from the phone back to Mina's face, seeing the flicker of the old wound, but also the steel in her eyes. He put his hand over hers on the desk. "We can go anywhere in the world, Mina. We can go to his board of directors and show them this pathetic display, have him censured. We have a dozen moves we can make." Mina looked down at their joined hands, then back up at his face. A slow, dangerous smile spread across her lips. It was a smile Julian had never seen before. It was the smile of a woman who had just realized the game wasn't over. "No," she said, her voice low and steady. "I have a better idea. Get your pilot ready. We're going to the Amalfi Coast." Julian Croft's Gulfstream G650 cut through the stratosphere like a silver dart. Inside, the world was a hushed cocoon of cream leather and polished walnut. While Liam and Ella had posted about their commercial business class seats, a carefully curated image of accessible luxury, Mina and Julian traveled in a different reality altogether. There was no check-in, no security line, no boarding pass, just a sleek black car that drove them directly onto the tarmac at Teterboro Airport and a flight crew that greeted them by name. Mina, dressed in a tailored navy blue jumpsuit from the row, sipped a glass of Krug champagne and reviewed a portfolio for a new artist. She was calm, her focus absolute. This was not a revenge trip fueled by tears and fury. It was a strategic maneuver planned with the precision of a corporate takeover. Julian had dubbed it the Italian Gambit. "Are you sure about this, Mina?" Julian asked gently, watching her from the opposite armchair. "We don't have to play their game." "We're not," she replied, looking up from her tablet, her eyes clear and steady. "When Liam did this, he was counting on me being the woman he left broken, hiding, and ashamed. He's expecting her to see that post and cry into her pillow. He's not expecting me." She gestured around the cabin. "He's not expecting this. This isn't about him anymore. It's about me refusing to let him turn a beautiful place into a haunted house. It's about closing a chapter on my terms." Julian nodded, a look of profound admiration on his face. He understood. This was a power play. But the ultimate prize wasn't Liam's regret. It was Mina's liberation. He had made one phone call. Not to the Hotel Santa Caterina's public booking line, but to the personal mobile of the owner a man he'd once advised on a vineyard acquisition. The result, Liam and Ella, who had likely booked their sea view suite months in advance and were paying a premium, were about to be upstaged. Julian had secured the Foglia Amalfitana suite, a 2-level private apartment built into the cliffside with its own circular swimming pool, a private garden, and a dedicated butler. It was a suite so exclusive it wasn't even listed on the hotel's website. Upon landing at Naples International Airport, they were met not by a taxi, but by a private helicopter. As they soared over the shimmering Bay of Naples, the dramatic coastline unfolding beneath them, Mina felt a sense of exhilaration. She was seeing this legendary landscape not through a filter of yearning and betrayal, but from a position of ultimate power. They arrived at the Hotel Santa Caterina like apparitions. The helicopter landed on a private pad on a neighboring cliff, and a Riva speedboat transferred them to the hotel's private dock, bypassing the main entrance entirely. The hotel manager, a distinguished man named Signor Rossi, greeted them personally. "Mr. Croft, Miss Vance, welcome. Everything is prepared as you requested." Their arrival was silent, discreet, and utterly seamless. Meanwhile, Liam and Ella were living out their Instagram fantasy. They had spent their first day creating content, Ella posing in an array of bikinis by the main pool, Liam looking pensively out at the sea, a staged candid of them, laughing over pasta. Their every move was for the unseen audience, their every moment a performance. They were, as Liam had bragged to a friend on the phone, staying in the best suite in the house. The next afternoon, they staked out the prime lounge chairs at the beach club, a stunning terraced area carved into the rock face, accessible by a glass elevator. The sun was warm, the sea was impossibly blue, and Ella was directing Liam on the perfect angle for her next selfie. "A little lower, babe. Get the boat in the background. Make it look like we own it," she instructed, pouting her lips. Liam, looking slightly bored, obliged. He was starting to feel the strain of the constant performance. This trip was supposed to be a romantic getaway, but it felt more like a photo shoot with a very demanding director. A part of him, a part he refused to acknowledge, missed the easy, unself-conscious way Mina used to travel. It was then that he saw her. She wasn't where he expected her to be. She was on the water. A sleek mahogany Riva speedboat. The kind of boat featured in classic films was gliding towards the private dock. At the helm was a man he didn't recognize, exuding an air of quiet confidence, and sitting beside him, her hair tied back in a silk scarf, wearing oversized sunglasses and a simple but breathtakingly elegant white sundress, was Mina. Liam froze. His brain could not process the image. It was a glitch in the matrix. Mina, here now, she looked radiant, serene. She wasn't looking at the hotel, wasn't scanning the crowd for him. Her attention was on the man beside her, laughing at something he said, her smile genuine and unforced. "Babe, did you get the shot?" Ella's voice snapped him back to reality. "What? Oh yeah," he stammered, his hands fumbling with the phone. He watched, mesmerized, as the boat docked. He watched as the man Julian helped Mina out of the boat with a familiar ease that spoke of deep intimacy. He watched as a member of the hotel staff rushed to greet them, not as typical guests, but as royalty. Ella finally followed his gaze. "Who is that?" she asked, a note of envy in her voice. "That boat is insane." Then her eyes narrowed. "Wait a second. Is that Mina?" Ah! The name came out as a hiss. The filtered perfection of their afternoon was instantly shattered. Mina wasn't supposed to be here. She was supposed to be in New York, irrelevant and forgotten. As if on cue, Signor Rossi, the hotel manager himself, appeared at the dock. "Mr. Croft, Miss Vance, I trust your excursion was pleasant. Your private pool has been warmed to your preferred temperature, and your butler has chilled a bottle of the vintage you requested." Private pool. Butler. The words drifted across the water to where Liam and Ella sat. The best suite in the house. They had been fools. They weren't even playing in the same league. They were guests. Mina and Julian were residents. Mina finally casually let her gaze drift over to the main beach club. Her sunglasses were inscrutable, but her eyes met Liam's for a fleeting second. There was no anger in her look, no pain. There was something far worse, polite, indifferent recognition. The kind of look you give a stranger you vaguely recognize from somewhere. Then she turned, took Julian's arm, and they disappeared into a private elevator that ascended to a part of the hotel Liam didn't even know existed. Liam stared at the empty space where she had been, a cold dread washing over him. The sun felt a little colder, the sea a little less blue. This trip, this grand romantic gesture, designed to be the final nail in the coffin of his past, had just backfired in the most spectacular way imaginable. He had come here to flaunt his new life, but the ghost of his old one had just shown up and proven without a single word that she was living in a world he couldn't even afford a ticket to. The gambit had been played, and he had already lost. The next 24 hours were a masterclass in psychological warfare executed with the quiet elegance of a royal procession. Mina and Julian never once acknowledged Liam and Ella directly. They didn't have to. Their presence was a constant shimmering statement of a higher status, a different reality. While Liam and Ella had to make reservations and vie for the best tables, Julian and Mina would have a candlelit dinner on their private terrace, the scent of jasmine and the sound of a softly played mandolin arranged by their butler, of course drifting down to the common areas. While Ella tried to get the perfect Instagram shot of her breakfast, a waiter would be discreetly setting up an elaborate spread for two by a private infinity pool that seemed to melt into the sea. The effect on Liam was devastating. Every glimpse of Mina was a fresh blow to his ego. He saw her laughing with Julian on their way to the spa, her hand resting easily on his arm. He saw them being greeted by name by a Michelin-starred chef who had come to their suite to personally discuss the evening's menu. He saw her reading a book by her pool, the picture of serene contentment, a woman entirely at peace with her world. This wasn't the weeping, broken woman he had left behind. This was a goddess resurrected and reigning in a paradise he had tried to claim as his own. The narrative he had so carefully constructed, that he had upgraded, that he had left a drab life for a vibrant one, crumbled into dust. He had traded a queen for a court jester, and the entire world, or at least this small exclusive corner of it, was now a witness. Ella, too, felt the shift. Her initial anger at Mina's presence curdled into a resentful envy. She saw the genuine adoration in Julian Croft's eyes when he looked at Mina. She saw the quiet confidence that came from authentic power, not just borrowed wealth. She looked at Liam, who was now moody, distracted, and constantly staring at his ex-wife, and she saw him for what he was, a second-tier player, desperately trying to convince everyone he was in the major leagues. Her constant demands for photo shoots began to grate on him. "Ella, can we just put the phone away and have a normal meal?" he snapped during lunch. "I'm trying to capture the memories, Liam," she retorted, her voice shrill. "Isn't this what we came for? To show everyone how happy we are?" "Are we?" he shot back, the question hanging in the air between them, ugly and unanswered. The climax came on their final evening. Liam, desperate to reassert some form of control, managed to get a last-minute table at the hotel's famed restaurant. He was determined to have one perfect romantic dinner to salvage something from this disastrous trip. As they were seated, he saw Mina and Julian at a discreet corner table, the best in the house. They looked up as Liam and Ella approached, and for the first time, their paths directly intersected. "Liam," Mina said, her voice cool and even. It was the first word she had spoken to him. She gave him a polite nod, then her eyes flickered to Ella with a look of complete disinterest before returning to Julian. The dismissal was absolute. Liam, however, saw an opening. "Mina, fancy seeing you here. The world is small, isn't it?" he said, forcing a jovial tone. "Not really," Julian Croft interjected smoothly without standing up. His voice was quiet, but it commanded the attention of the entire patio. Some people just tend to gravitate towards the same beautiful things. His eyes were fixed on Mina as he spoke, leaving no doubt as to what or who he was referring to. Checkmate. Liam flushed, speechless. Ella stood awkwardly, her designer dress suddenly feeling cheap. Before Liam could recover, Mina delivered the final, graceful blow. She looked directly at him, a flicker of something unreadable in her eyes, not pity, but perhaps a clinical finality. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Liam, truly." Then she turned back to Julian, picked up her wine glass, and the conversation resumed, as if the interruption had never happened. They were dismissed. Liam and Ella proceeded to their table and endured the most excruciatingly silent dinner of their lives. The food tasted like cardboard. Every burst of laughter from Mina and Julian's table was like a physical blow. The true unraveling began on Instagram. A wealthy Brazilian heiress, also staying at the hotel, and a follower of both Ella and Mina's gallery, posted a story. It was a candid shot of the restaurant patio. In the foreground, Liam and Ella sat in stiff, miserable silence. In the background, partially obscured but unmistakable, Mina and Julian were leaning in close, sharing a moment of intimate laughter. The caption was in Portuguese, but the translation was brutal. Some people try to buy happiness, others simply embody it. The energy doesn't lie. The post went viral within their shared social circle. The carefully curated narrative was officially dead. The comments on Ella's and Liam's pages started to change. "Something seems off with you two. Did you see at Brazilian heiress's story awkward? Wait, isn't that his ex-wife with Julian Croft? Talk about an upgrade." Liam saw the comments. He saw his world tilting on its axis. He had tried to humiliate Mina, to erase her, and instead he had only humiliated himself. He had flown across the world to plant his flag, only to find she owned the entire country. Later that night, the argument in their suite was volcanic. "You've been staring at her all trip," Ella screamed. "You're still in love with your ex-wife." "Don't be ridiculous," Liam roared back, but the denial was weak. The truth was, he wasn't in love with Mina. He was in awe of her. He was consumed by a toxic cocktail of regret, envy, and a desperate, pathetic longing for a life he had thrown away. He had destroyed his past for a future that now seemed like a hollow, second-rate imitation. He looked at Ella, at her tear-streaked face, and her accusations, and he felt nothing but a profound, soul-crushing exhaustion. The vibe was gone. The dream was a nightmare. He had lost. The flight back to New York was as different for the two couples as their time in Italy had been. Liam and Ella flew in stony, resentful silence, the space between their business-class seats feeling like a canyon. Their carefully constructed romance had fractured under the weight of jealousy and insecurity. The Amalfi Coast, which was meant to be the backdrop for their love story, had become the scene of its implosion. Meanwhile, on Julian Croft's GC650, the atmosphere was light and peaceful. As the coast of Italy disappeared below the clouds, Mina leaned her head against the soft leather of her seat and let out a long, slow breath. "It's done," she said softly. Julian reached over and took her hand. "Was it what you expected?" Mina was quiet for a moment, considering the question. "No," she said finally. "It was more. I thought I went there for him to show him what he'd lost, but standing there looking at him I realized he was irrelevant. The trip wasn't about revenge. It was about reclamation. I was taking back a place, a dream, a part of myself that I thought he had stolen. And I realized he hadn't stolen anything. He had just revealed what was already mine." She looked at Julian, her eyes full of a love and gratitude that was deep and true. "Thank you," she said. "Not for the jet or the suite, but for seeing me when I couldn't see myself, for reminding me of my own strength." "Your strength was always there, Mina," he said, lifting her hand to his lips. "I just held up a mirror." When they landed, Mina didn't go back to her old life or the shadows of it. She went back to her life, to Vance Modern, which was now fielding partnership offers from major museums, to the team of young, brilliant artists she was championing, to the future she was building brick by brick. The fallout for Liam and Ella was swift and merciless. Their breakup was announced a month later, not in a glossy magazine, but via a terse statement from Liam's publicist. The narrative of their epic love story had become a punchline. Ella, stripped of her future Mrs. Sterling status, faded back into the obscurity from which she came, her social media presence devolving into sponsored posts for diet teas. Liam's professional life also suffered. The story of the Amalfi Showdown, embellished and retold at 1,000 dinner parties, painted him as foolish and weak. Investors grew wary of his judgment. At a crucial board meeting, when he presented an aggressive new expansion plan, a skeptical board member, a friend of Julian's, simply asked, "Is this plan as well thought out as your last vacation, Liam?" The question hung in the air, a quiet indictment of his character. His star began to fade. One afternoon, about 6 months later, Mina was leaving her gallery when she saw him. Liam was standing across the street, looking thin and diminished. He made a move to cross towards her, a desperate, pleading look on his face. For a second, the old Mina, the one conditioned to manage his emotions, felt a tug of something, pity perhaps. But she stood her ground. She was no longer his caretaker. She simply met his gaze, held it for a beat, and gave him a small, final nod. It was not a nod of forgiveness, nor of malice. It was a nod of dismissal, a closing of the book. Then she turned and got into the waiting car where Julian was waiting for her, a warm smile on his face. She didn't look back. Her story became something of a legend among women in the city, not as a tale of revenge, but as a story of reinvention. She had taken the ultimate betrayal and transformed it not into bitterness, but into fuel. She had refused to be a victim, refused to be a footnote in a man's story. She had walked through fire and emerged not scorched, but forged. The final scene of her old life wasn't the confrontation in Italy. It was a quiet evening in the Hudson Valley. She and Julian were walking through an apple orchard on his estate, the setting sun casting a golden glow. "I have something for you," he said, stopping under a large, ancient apple tree. He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. It wasn't a ring. Inside, nestled on a bed of satin, was a vintage compass, its brass casing warm and intricate. "Every builder needs a compass," Julian said softly. "Not to find their way back, but to always know the direction of their own true north." Mina looked from the compass to his face, her heart overflowing. He understood. Her journey wasn't about finding another person to complete her, it was about finding herself. He wasn't her savior, he was her partner, her true north. She closed her hand around the compass, its weight solid and real. The past was a ghost. The future was an undiscovered country, and for the first time she felt truly, completely, and gloriously free, ready to step into a new horizon that was entirely her own. Mina's story isn't just about getting back at an ex, it's about getting back to yourself. It's a powerful reminder that your worth is not defined by who you love, but by who you are. She lost a marriage, but she gained an empire, and more importantly, she gained her own soul. Her story proves that the greatest comebacks are not about revenge, but about resurrection. It's about taking the rubble of a life you thought you wanted and using it to build the foundation of a life that is authentically, powerfully yours. If her journey from heartbreak to head of the table inspired you, please give this video a like and share it with someone who needs to be reminded of their own power. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell for more stories of incredible transformations and epic triumphs. Thank you for watching.